Welcome to Orlando, where the music jams flow. Welcome to Orlando, but we off the chain, but we off the chain.
This one right here is for the city I love. For all my folks in the O, on the black riding chrome, slamming big body.
Welcome back to the Inward Nine, a fantasy golf metrics production. My name's Jeff Ulrich, and people, we did it. We got him across the line. Paul Casey finally picking up the win last week. And we're going to talk about we're definitely going to talk about the Valspar Championship today. Obviously going to talk about the Arnold Palmer Invitational. We'll talk about fantasy, DraftKings, a little bit of bets, just some player profiles, some one-on-ones like we always do. Fantasy Golf Metrics co-founder Stephen Richter's here. And again, I mean, FGM bets rolling again, third outright, and I believe it's the 6 weeks. Only put out 3 outright bets. So the supercomputer, as I like to call it, is rolling right now, people. And really, the supercomputer is just Steven with his fancy stats every week. So got to give him credit. But Steve, how are you doing, man? I mean, how are you feeling about that win? I mean, I was obviously pumped up about it, but were you equally pumped up? I mean, probably conflicting emotions because everyone still wanted Tiger to win, right?
There were so many emotions. I mean, let's start with the emotions. This is like a high-level Sean O'Hare or Mark Leishman winning for you. I was rooting for you and Paul Casey to win, regardless of the money, the bets. But yeah, I mean, obviously Tiger, I wouldn't have been mad had he made that 38-footer on 18. It just would have been so much fun. No one would have been upset. It just would have been a great day for golf all around. And it was a great weekend for golf all around. I mean, obviously with our bets, we've been fortunate. I mean, before we came on the air, I was talking about. With 30 minutes to go after having the top 3 guys all week, we looked like we might have a goose egg. Patrick Reed might have won, or someone else might have won. Sam Burns, who we had a lot invested in, tripled a couple holes to go. Snedeker almost shot 80, and it just shows you the fine lines. Yes, we've been hot, and it's been really fortunate to feel like we've been spotting some trends. But at the same time, the difference between a goose egg and 25 unit return is a 3-putt by Patrick Reed on the 72nd hole. So
an amazing 3-putt. Like I said before we started the show, man, when that ball started rolling back, I got so happy. And I know some people had some big stuff on Patrick Reed too. He was a good number, so kudos to those people who picked him because he really was a good bet. But yeah, I got pretty happy because I just feel like with Casey and I'm going to talk about this a little bit. I'm going to get into Paul Casey a little bit here. But with Casey, I just feel like a few situations have really not gone his way in the past. And it's like snowballed into this huge thing. Like he's this guy, he's just never going to win again. I mean, you can take that bias and you can, rely on it. But in my opinion, you're just doing yourself a disservice because, I mean, you look at the stats, you look at what the guy's done over the past few years. And I mean, he's gotten himself back into like the top 20, top 15 players in the world just by playing consistently every week. And yeah, he hasn't got across the finish line, but it's not necessarily just about what he's done. It's not about him like being mentally weak, in my opinion. It's just not getting a few breaks in certain situations and just fixing a few things in his game. And if you watch his press conference after, he talked about putting. I mean, he talked about it specifically. He just made a little bit of a change in approach. He just said, I'm just going to be a little bit easier on myself. And it eventually rallied itself into this huge putting round on Sunday. And like, that's all it took. It's just a fine line between, a guy who had almost everything together and putting it all together. So, I mean, it was nice. We finally got the breaks at the end with Casey. I mean, putting up the 64 and, people who want to like say, oh, well, he wouldn't have done that if he was in the lead on Saturday. He would have just crumbled like usual. Who cares? He won. He put up the best round on Sunday. If you watch the last 3 holes, he got up and down 3 times in a row. He sunk like a 6-foot putt on 18. He knew that was for the win too. So, don't give me that crap about he choke fuse in another position. That's just a bad argument in my opinion. So I'm pumped. I thought he played well. I mean, he obviously almost shot himself out of Saturday, but he took advantage of the opportunity. And again, when it comes to betting, you're right. It's fine lines. And in my opinion, you got to trust your process. Don't let the biases from thinking people can't win get in there. Just trust what your process. And if your process led you on Paul Casey last week, you're happy like me. If it didn't, doesn't mean you're wrong. I'm not trying to say people who didn't bet call Paul Casey are dumb or something. But just trust your process. Don't let these biases of who's mentally tough and not. Because in my opinion, and maybe you agree with this, Steve, or not, but all these guys are mentally tough. They all got to the PGA Tour. You know how competitive it is to get there? I mean, it's ridiculous. So I just think that that's something that is way overblown as far as like narratives.
Golf is so hard. It's so hard, people. I mean, it's just an optics thing, I think, when it comes to whether you talk about a player choking or not, because if you see things happen, they get put out there more. If someone makes a bad shot when they're in a big position, it gets blown up. I mean, so many players are within a couple of the lead every single week, and they falter, and no one talks about it. But I feel like because Paul Casey is such a next level talent relative to so many people. I'm not saying he's older. I'm not saying he's like up and coming, but he's just one of those talents that you expected more of maybe on paper. Kind of like with Luke Donald to an extent. I mean, listen, Luke Donald, #1 player in the world at one point, so it's hard to say. But I think it's kind of that feeling. But you're right. You can't look at this bias of whether players are playing well. I mean, I saw an interesting stat. I think it was 3 or 4 times this season already Casey has 66 or better in the final round. Now, listen, I know not all of those are in contention, but he has the most rounds at 66 or better this year in the final round. So it's a numbers game. These guys are going to play extremely well. When they play well, maybe it's their time. Maybe someone beats them. And this week, Casey was the guy that came up and beat everyone.
And every golfer has a bad Sunday. I mean, look, even Patrick Reed, who people say choked on 18, the guy sunk like a 50-foot eagle on one to get himself in contention.
No choking. That was not a choke.
It wasn't a choke. It was just a really hard putt. He tried to hit it perfectly, and it came up a little short. I mean, kudos to.
You know what it was? I'm sorry to cut you off. It was the golf gods with that twirl from the fairway.
Yeah, man. Oh, yeah.
No,
Dude,
no one twirls in red and black from the fairway on the 72nd hole and gets away with it, especially with Tiger right behind him.
Man, when he hit that drive, though, I texted you. I was like, wow, we are in trouble, because I knew he was like 120 yards away and would have a wedge in. And I knew that was like, he was probably going to have a birdie chance. So, yeah, you're right. It was the golf gods. Like I said, we dodged a bullet with Reed. But I mean, again, this is the guy who's known as a great closer, right? Everyone would, in the playoff, everyone would say, oh, Patrick Reed's got a huge chance over Casey. Well, I mean, he didn't come through on 18. He had a chance. And I mean, it happens to everyone. That's my point. It kind of happened to Tiger on the weekend too. It happened to Justin Rose.
Oh my
Justin
God,
Rose
you're
was
right.
cruising.
No one is talking about how Reed choked. If it was the other way around and Casey did that,
oh my God,
huge choke.
Oh, we'd be hearing about like every time the guy was mentioned on Sunday, it would come up again. So I mean, exactly. If the tables were turned, it would be huge. But like I said, Casey was pretty clutch down the stretch, man. He didn't have his greatest ball striking through the snake pit, and he still parred them all. So again, I just give a shout out to him. Like I said, if you didn't like the number on Casey or something else led you off him, that's fine. Like I'm fine with that. I'm not trying to say everyone should have been on him last week or something. I'm just saying, don't let your biases like from just narratives that make no sense, like guys can't win, creep in, because it doesn't help you. It's not going to help you in the long run. Just trust your process. And by the way, when we talk about process, like it's good to have that. That's why I'm so glad that you guys started the site and I'm a part of it, because I was gonna bet Paul Casey last week, probably regardless, just because I felt like his number compared to the week before was still pretty big. But once you started to give me your take and the stats, that's when I decided to get him big. So instead of just betting like half a unit, I bet like basically 2 full units. Had a great week, but without that help, I mean, from FGM and the community and stuff, like I wouldn't have done that. So that's kind of my pitch, man. Like that's what we're trying to build here, help people out. Hopefully, you guys check out the site and come to the same conclusions. But I mean, it's nice to be able to get the win, but also for the Fantasy Golf Metrics community too, because that's obviously we're off to a good start. But it was very helpful for me this week personally too. So.
Yeah, well, listen, it's interesting you said that, because I talked to one of the other guys that's involved with us, Stephen Wendell, and he, I put Sam Burns as one of those 3 outrights, and it looked crazy, on the number, but it's one of those things where we try and take out as much bias as we can. The charts that I have set up for myself that I look at Wednesday before I email all the subscribers, I didn't list Burns as a winner just because I saw the name and the price initially. I'm like, you know what? If there were no names and no prices next to the data that I'm looking at, this guy would be an auto bet based on what I'm seeing. Right. So I added him in there, and listen, he was tied for second with a couple holes to go. He was kind of in. I don't think he ever really threatened to win on Sunday, but it's not like he was so far out of it. So if he would have won and I would have not hit on a 135 to 1 because of that bias that you're talking about, I would have been livid. I mean, listen, he didn't end up paying anything. He finished, I think, 12th after the blow up. He finished 4 over in the snake pit, so it didn't cash anything. But he was there. Like exactly, he was right. That's what you're trying to say, is that there's no bias. So I don't want to ever look at Paul Casey and say, Well, he doesn't close, so that's why I wasn't going to bet him. Like that's not going to be a successful recipe when we're trying to have a systematic process.
And for Burns, it's the exact. It's similar argument. It's just like, oh, he's a young guy. He's just coming up. He's not going to quite be able to get it done in this type of field. Well, we've seen young guys actually get it done who've come out of nowhere, right? I mean, Xander Schauffele at the end of last year was kind of in that situation. A couple other guys. So it's the exact same thing. Just try not to let the biases of narratives and things like that creep in. I mean, I know I'm not perfect. I do it all the time. Trust me. I probably overbet Paul Casey in the past. But, you know, and I'm just saying, and this is a perfect example because I see a lot of people talking about, well, Casey finally did it. He's a bad number, whatever. But, you know, in my opinion, you just got to look at every week fresh. Try not to let those things seep in and just trust your process.
You want to be honest. The main reason I bet him, and I was looking at my notes from last week from the podcast that I had in front of me, was because Phil won the week before, and I didn't take him at 18-1 because of the number.
Right.
And I said, you know what? Bull crap. I'm taking him because I don't care if he's 20-1, because if he wins and I don't have him and I felt that strongly about him, it doesn't matter. Listen, we had Thomas a couple of weeks ago. Sure, he's one of the favorites, and you know whether you decide 10-1 is a good number or not, it doesn't matter. If he wins, it doesn't matter if it's a good number. It's the only number you could have hit with. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, and Phil's a great example. I was on this exact same boat. Loved him in DFS. I'm like, oh man, Phil at 20-1. He looks so good, but I made the same mistake, man. So we both did, but they, live and learn. Like we made up for it in 1 week, which is nice because you don't always get that opportunity. So, anything else from the Valspar? I mean, obviously Tiger, awesome. We can talk about him in relation to the Arnold Palmer because he's playing again. But anyone else you want to keep your eye on? Anything else that caught your eye? Or obviously Snedeker was.
It was comical. Luckily, Casey was.
It was. You know what? I mean, playing with Tiger Woods 2 days in a row. It's just. I'm not actually shocked that happened.
It goes both ways. I think he had mentioned on Saturday night or Sunday morning that playing with him helped energize him and play well on Saturday. So I think it can go both ways. If you're feeling it and you're riding that adrenaline in a positive way, it can be helpful to like some of the better players in the world. But yeah, at the same time, if you don't have your game and then you're in that atmosphere, you can see how quickly it falls apart. And it was too bad because he made birdie on the first hole. He was really good, and it just came apart. And it was kind of like he was just stepping aside to see what was going to happen with Tiger.
Yeah, it happened. It happens from now and then. But I just felt like 2 days in a row is just a little too much to ask. He didn't have his best stuff though. I mean, and once the putter started missing a little bit, he was kind of done. A couple other guys I'll just throw out that obviously had good weeks, but maybe didn't putt well. Louis, Adam Scott, Adam Hadwin really didn't putt well for a guy who generally known as a good putter, but he's tee to green. He's still amazing. And Sean O'Hare, another guy who actually was like fourth tee to green or something like that. So 4 guys who all were like in the bottom putting, but tee to green played well enough to be in it. Just to throw that out. And Sergio actually kind of thrown there too. He had a really good Sunday, but I think everyone else already kind of knew that. So anything else before we move on to Arnold Palmer? Any one and done shout outs or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, it is the final week this week for the first quarter of the year. So for everyone that's involved, right. After this week we'll pay our first. It's a $25 win. Just for being first in the first quarter. A couple shout-outs. The guy Leaflander had Stenson.
Oh, yeah, Leaflander update.
Yep, so Leaflander update is he's following his pattern of either winning or missing the cut. So it's one or the other, but he's still got a commanding $800,000 lead. So, there's a couple guys that can catch. I will tell you, if you look on the leaderboard, it shows you the top 5 at all times. There's a guy that I'm familiar with in 6th. We just went Phil Mickelson and Paul Casey to go to 6th place in our own contest, so I'll take that. But I'm about 1.8 million behind him, and I don't think there's a way you can catch him. I think winner this week gets like 1.6, 1.7. So really only a couple guys are in it. But we've made a move. Obviously, if we claim any prizes, the next person after us, we'll make sure we give the winnings to. But listen, it's a lot of fun. I think he'll start to kind of come back to the mean. That's what I've seen. We got a couple guys just nipping at his heels right there. So a lot of guys around 3 million plus, which I think is a pretty strong spot this time. But yeah, I mean, last week, and then we'll start up a brand new one. So even if you haven't been involved too much, or you missed a couple of things and you gave up, we're gonna have another next 10 event run where we're gonna give some money out again, and there's no reason not to get in. Yeah,
definitely. So check that out. It's on the one and done section of the site. And again, just with the one and done too, if you want to start like a one and done series, like middle of the road, or you got like a bunch of guys who want to start one in the middle of the season, excuse me, you can still do that on the site. You can transfer over one that's in play too. So definitely check it out. It's one of the most useful things of the site, and it's free still, right? So I mean,
that'll be free.
Yeah, so definitely check that out if you're into that stuff. And we still got the FanDuel offer going on now. I won't go over it here, but you can find it on the article on the site, regardless of if you're a subscriber or not. It's in the Monday article. It's FanDuel /FGM. Again, really good offer. You can go over it, but basically you can get a free year subscription if you're a new FanDuel member and you make a deposit. Then all the information's there. But let's move on to the Arnold Palmer Invitational. And I mean, this is shaping up to be another pretty good week with a similar kind of, maybe even probably a stronger type of field at the top, at least. Tiger's obviously here. Rory's back, although Rory is, man, like we'll talk about him a little bit later. But Jason Day's playing again. Finally, he's only played twice. Justin Rose back. Hideki's back from injury, so that's kind of interesting because the Masters coming up. And I mean, Hideki's got to get some form in here, but he does have a good Masters record. Ricky's back. Tyrrell Hatton, Alex Noren, Tommy Fleetwood, Bubba, Adam Scott. I won't go over any more names. But that's a pretty good start. So, yeah, I mean, Arnold Palmer, Bay Hill, obviously longer par 72, about 7,400 plus yards. Not super long, but it's seen some renos in the past. They did cut back some trees and fairways a few years ago. I think it was 2014. They've gone through a couple different greens, but they have Tiff Eagle in there now, and I think it's been in there for at least a couple years. It still plays pretty fast because I believe they're newer greens. But again, it's a par 72 with some scoreable par 5s. Last year, it was a little bit tougher scoring. I think the weather kind of picked up. It was a little bit colder, maybe. So Leishman won at 11 under. But the years before, the scoring did get up to like 16, 17, I think even 19 under maybe one year. So good weather in the forecast this year. We'll see what happens. But you got notes about the course or anything there, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I noticed, just a couple things I always write down before we talk is, the average win minus 12.7. So a little worse scoring than average on tour. But what was really interesting to me is the average cut is 2.1 over par. And just to give you a reference there, Valspar at Innisbrook, it's only 1.6. So, you can go a little lower than Valspar, but it's the course isn't a cakewalk. I think people think about Bay Hill sometimes as like somewhat of an easier course.
Right.
So you see a lot of scoring, you see a lot of highlights, you see a lot of fun, but it's not necessarily an easy course. And the cut number, it's been as high as 4.5 in a couple of years. But yeah, the average is 2.1. It's one of the tougher, the higher cuts of the year.
A lot of big numbers out there.
Yep.
A lot of water.
No, it's. I mean, listen, it's a great place. I got a chance to play with a really good friend of mine about 4 years ago. We took a trip. I flew down on Saturday morning, played Saturday afternoon, played Sunday morning, flew back home, stayed on location because you have to stay to play. But I just a little tidbit there. I mean, the course is great. We played from the tips. I think I'm like this big shot going to play from out there because we're playing a tour course, so I want to see it. And
yeah,
what people need to realize is I'm not so much a data nerd, but I am a golf nerd. Like I am obsessed with the history. I'm obsessed with I'm playing a course. I don't get to play many tour courses. I played some cool places, but I'm there and I'm all jacked up and I'm playing all right. So we get to 17. I hit a good shot. Actually, pin was in the way back right on that par 3. Don't end up making birdie, but so we get to 18 and like at this time it's still right around the time Tiger had recently won there. So I think it was 2012 or 2013 around there.
Right.
And it's like, oh my God, we're playing 18 for the first time. This is where it all happens. So I hit a decent drive, about 170 out. I hit a 6-iron to 10 feet. I'm like, holy crap. So I'm not making any putts because the greens, they're not hard, but like I'm not a good putter, so it doesn't matter. But from like 5 feet and in, they're perfect greens. But I'm not making anything. But I'm like, I have to make this. So I make it. You can imagine how excited I am. We're finishing up the hole. My buddy taps in. We're walking off to the cart. He's like, Steve, you leaving some? I have the flag still in my hand while I'm at the cart. I got people looking at me like, I'm so excited from doing this. It's like one of my golf nerdiest, like act like you've been there once before. It was so exciting. So that's my story.
They seem to like put it in your bag and start driving or something.
Mm-hmm. Like I'm coming home with this. I have to.
Yeah. Dude, that's a hard hole too. Like the 18, you got to hit a drive. Like there's water kind of in play, it's rough. If you hit it in the rough, then you got to go over the water. So
I didn't have the flag in the back right. It was like actually in a more
right. Okay.
Yeah, it was back.
Okay.
It was like back left.
It's still
so
tough. I mean, it's still like intimidating without water. I mean, that's one of the things I was going to mention is I like 18 because it brings big numbers into play, but it's still semi birdieable too. So you can see a lot of swings on 18. I know Leishman last year, he hit it like 250, like dead into the rough. He hit it so bad it was like short of the water. But then he hit this amazing approach, which left him just on the fringe. But then he just chipped like as like 100-foot chip, but it was perfect to 3 feet. That was a good sweat last year too. Leishman at 100-1. Oh baby, another example of a guy who people just were like, oh man, he hasn't won since 2012, never wins. No one took him at it.
You're right. It's the same.
It was kind of the same. It wasn't quite as bad, but it's a little bit similar last year. So yeah, some karma there. But yeah, I mean, I like this course. I mean, there's a little bit of scoring. There's big numbers out there too. I like the fact they finally got the green straightened out. I think that was an issue for a couple of years. But
you know what I will say? What I will say about the course is two things. One, I think Justin Ray, the guy from Golf Channel, always puts out some interesting stats. Or it might have been Pat. It might have been Pat Mayo. I forget. They both put out some kind of like tidbits about the course, but it's the hardest opening 3 holes on tour.
Okay.
It's the first par, the par four first is pretty basic in terms of yard. It's not too hard, dogleg left, but like it's the easiest of the 3. Second hole is this downhill to a peninsula 230, 240 par 3, really really tough. And then I got to the third hole. It's I don't know if you know what it looks like. It's basically a big downhill shot, and you're hitting to a thin fairway, and it's all lake left and like rough right, but it's a dogleg left. It is. Oh
yeah, I know. I remember
it's
3.
Terrifying.
3 is the tough. Yeah, that is the tough hole. That's one of the toughest holes.
And the thing I would say is, what wears you down about the course is so many holes feel like they can or should be easy, and I think that's why you see that disparity in the better winning score and the worst cut. Is so many of these holes, they're like, oh well, I should birdie this hole. I should birdie, like these should be birdie holes, and then you get a little off, and the next thing you know, you're fighting for a par and bogey, and it's I think it mentally drains you, the fact that you feel like you should be doing better, and it keeps beating you up.
Right. Yeah. No. I mean, and again, like you make one mistake, and then you're on the way to like triple bogey down too. But no, yeah, 3 is a deadly hole. It reminds me a little bit of 18 at Sawgrass too, with that tough tee shot, and then you guys still got a long approach in most of the time. Unless you hit like a Ricky bomb like he did when he won. But yeah, no, it's a decent course. It's got, like I said, it's got some easier scoreable par 5s, but it's got some like really really tough par 4s and stuff too. So should be another good week. Let's dive into the player group now. I mean, obviously we got to talk about Tiger off the top here. Are you shocked at his price on DraftKings? Because I was. I mean, first of all, I don't know why he's not the most expensive player.
Yes.
And I mean, I don't know. Is he is he basically unfadable at this price?
So I was talking to the guy at I know the guy at FanDuel that actually like handles the pricing. So I was talking to him, and
right.
He takes our input on some things, and it's more like a kind of a helpful relationship there. He was like, how do you not price him? Who do you price ahead of him? And we basically we kind of agreed. Like I think we have who I don't know who it was. It was like he was like DJ or JT, especially coming up like to the Masters even. Like how do you change that? And I think on Fantasy Draft he's second, just behind Jason Day, and on FanDuel he's what? I think he's like third or fourth.
Right.
Behind Day and Rose. So like that made sense to me. Like it's just there's only a couple people. So when I saw him on DraftKings for 10,000, I'm like, I'm playing Tiger Woods. If you're playing DraftKings, I'll tell you right now. I mean, he's going to be on the 1v1s. I don't want to spoil it. Again, the number's too ridiculous to bet. But at 10,000, like, what's the ownership going to be? I mean, it's a guy
50%.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, like what?
From the guys that I see and the numbers that I see, he is not a farce in the last couple of weeks. Like if he was like a 25 to 30 to 1 number and his name wasn't Tiger Woods, I'd probably be looking to bet him this week from what I'm seeing. I'm very, very excited to see him this week, and he is one of the favorites outside of the betting favorite and them trying to lower the price to make sure that the weight doesn't come in as heavy, because it's been coming in. But I have him ranked 5th in form. Forget course history, where obviously he's number 1, but I got him ranked 5th in form, 10th in trend, 10th in the secret stat. So like, he's a player right now.
Yeah, it's not just that he's like getting contention. He's playing well. Like he's starting to like dominate again. It's getting close. So It's weird. I really thought he would be the very least like second and most expensive. I definitely thought he'd be over 11K. It is what it is, though, man. It's going to be an interesting week, that's for sure. Because like if you don't play Tiger, your guy better go off, and you better hit your other plays too. I mean, you basically have to hope he finishes like T10, and like your other guys finish in the top five. And I'm not saying it can't work, but like wow, it's tough for tournaments. It's gonna be a tough fade. So definitely gonna be ownership up the roof. I mean, we'll see what Bobby says on Tuesday. It's gonna be a tough one for Bobby probably, but I wouldn't be shocked to be at 50% or higher. Like I really wouldn't be. I mean, I think the last time I saw a situation like this, it was like Jim Furyk at the Canadian Open or something like that, like 3 years ago, and he was such an obvious play that he was like 60% owned. So we'll see. Maybe it's not quite as bad because we got, obviously some people just be like, well, I'll take Justin Rose or I'll fade him. But I really feel like you're going to see some insane ownership. But let's move on to like the one versus ones, and then we can talk about a few more players. The first one I got up here, Rory versus Ricky. Obviously both these guys, neither are coming in good form. I haven't actually checked where we got them ranked, but give me your take.
So I was really excited to put this one out there because I hadn't thought about either of them much, and then I looked into it. Just so you guys know, Jeff basically puts together this kind of like outline for us to go over some things. That's why we have the same structure that we've been rolling with. We've gotten some good feedback, but he likes to put out these one versus one. So right before we come on, I bring them up in front of me, and I'm like, all right, this is what we're gonna go at. These are, and they're perfect. They're generally spot on with who the guy, like either one of them I really like or one of them I don't like. So it's always been really good. And I hadn't thought about either of them until I saw this. So I dug in a little bit, and I'm like, listen, I don't know what to say about Rory right now. He's got some good history here. Other than that, the form is actually not terrible. It's just you can't justify with the pricing and what you're expecting of him. I mean, he's right. at 10-7, at 15-1, things like that, prices like that. You need him to finish top 5, and it's not there right now. So it doesn't mean that he doesn't have it in him. It's just I can't put the money behind him. But what I will say is this: I'm a little bit hunched here. I'm like, when I say hunch, I mean I see something I like, and I'm trying to maybe jump ahead of the curve. And I always talk about how it's okay to be behind the curve or wait, and that's usually like when I'm talking about the Euro players. But I like Ricky Fowler. From what I'm seeing, this is a pure putting issue. Which is funny to me because he's obviously just a good putter, and this is the same argument I had for CH3 last week, but like on a much lower level. He is trending in the right direction from what I can see ball striking wise, and it's almost like he's bottomed out in my mind in terms of putting, and just ahead of Augusta in a couple weeks. And the way I know the greens are not that difficult at this course if you just get them on the right line, I like Ricky this week. Yeah,
I mean we're pretty much on the same department. I think we're on this. I think a few people are on this train actually, because I know I already looked on Twitter and a few people had the same takes, but I had the exact same thoughts. I mean, looked at what he did in Mexico. He actually had a pretty good ball striking week. He just screwed up around the greens, and again, back in Florida, back on Bermuda grass, not that Kikuya. So, yeah, I'm not shocked to hear that he's kind of bottomed out from a putting perspective too. He's such a good putter. I mean, I just can't see it lasting that long. And I mean, I know we talk about it with Spieth, but Ricky's stroke is so pure, man. Like I think he's going to get it turned around quick, and it might be this week. So I do agree. I would definitely take Fowler. Rory played really well here last year, but I just feel like he's way further off. Like I said, I feel like Rory's going to be like a second half story at this point. I feel like Ricky is getting a little bit close, and when he does get that ball striking, the rest of the game, it can't be too far behind because he's so good around the greens. But definitely on Ricky there too. Next one is kind of interesting because obviously Tiger Woods is the first guy, and we already talked about him being like completely unfadable. But I just want to throw it out there: Woods versus Noren or Fleetwood this week, because we have both Noren and Fleetwood ranked really high. So what are your thoughts on going with one of those two guys versus Woods, just from like a tournament perspective? And if you really just want to just throw out like which one you would pick, that's fine, instead of just saying, oh, I take him over Woods.
I would not. I don't know that I would take Fleetwood over Woods. Noren, we have.
He's more expensive too. He's more expensive.
Yeah, I mean, we have Noren ranked number 1 on the Survival Guide, and we got him down at 9,200. So that's it is price dependent, that argument. I mean, Fleetwood at 9,500, not so much more, but I like Noren a lot. You know, he played once where he finished 48th. The trend is still pretty decent. The secret stats there. We have him ranked number 1 in form. He's been playing really well. He kind of had a WGC, I know, especially after playing after the way he played at Honda. But yeah, I mean, we have him ranked way above most of the people this week. So I think Noren is a lot closer. I mean, look, we have Fleetwood second, so it's hard for me to kind of argue, but it's just they're all ranked next to us. I mean, we have Noren, Fleetwood, Hatton, Woods, the first 4, in our ranks. So it's more of a toss-up. I mean, if I have to pick one of them, I want Woods to win. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, look, I don't know how. It's going to be hard to win without Tiger Woods. Like, you really need, you're just going to need him to have a blow-up round or something like that. And you'll need, if you do go with Noren, or if you do go with like Noren and Fleetwood in your lineup and then don't pick Woods, you're going to need both of them to top 10. So it's an unlikely scenario in my opinion, just because of the way Tiger Woods played Bay Hill, but it's definitely possible. I wouldn't completely fade Woods for these two, but I don't know. If I was going to play one of them, I kind of feel like Fleetwood is trending a little bit better just from it's just a feeling standpoint, but I don't know. I think I'd just probably take the savings on Noren and move on. They're really close, definitely for plays for me too. So next one is kind of interesting. It's actually a 3-on-3 or whatever.
3-ball.
1 versus 1 versus 1, 3-ball. Yeah, Adam Scott, Louis Oosthuizen, and Bubba Watson. The reason I brought them all up is they're all very similar in price. All have some decent but not great course history. All kind of played well recently. And Louis and Scott, obviously, tee to green were good last week. And then Bubba was pretty good in Mexico, too. Bubba, obviously, a little more volatile. But what's your take here?
Of the 3, I like Bubba.
Yeah, if you had to choose. Bubba, okay, yeah, interesting.
I think I'm sure you're a little surprised by that. Scott, it's not that I don't like Scott. I mean, if I had to rank them, I'm personally ranking them Bubba, Scott, Louis.
Right.
Scott, it's just... I mean, listen, if I have the same argument about Ricky, then I should have it about Scott. But it's just, it's the other way around. Like, Scott is just, the ball striking, it's there, and he's above his baseline, and he's been consistently above his 2-year baseline. But he is so far below and still on the way down on his strokes game putting. Like, I don't see it getting better. I mean, I know he's played well here, so maybe, that's why you'd consider it. But I like Bubba because I kind of see the same trend on the ball striking, but also, putting well too. And then Louis, it's not so much I don't like him. It's just if you gave me different guys to talk about, I just like Bubba and Scott more than him this week. Louis is kind of just more middle of the road.
Yeah, fair enough. Look, you can't really compare Scott to Ricky because they're putting like, I guess what you say, putting ceiling is just so different. I mean, Ricky led the field in strokes gained putting last year. His putting stroke when it's on is just, it's so good. Scott is like, at his best, he's going to be like barely above tour average at his very best, right? So, it's same kind of situation, but not really. I like Bubba kind of too. I was really interested in him when the prices came out. He's actually played kind of okay here. He is dealing off the tee right now. Like, he was dealing off the tee in Mexico, man. I don't know if people caught it, but he led the field in strokes gained off the tee there. If he hits it like that here, he's going to take some of these tough par 4s out of play and stuff too. And I will say this for Bubba too. The weather's supposed to be nice. And that's going to help Bubba be able to just, cruise around, hit some of those shots that he likes to hit, in my opinion. So I kind of like him at 8,600 too. I think I would actually take him. I do like Louis second. Scott, he was on my list last week. He actually came through. I actually took him over Hadwin. I think he actually beat Hadwin for the week. So he's on my list of plays. I kind of feel like, I don't know. I just feel like maybe I just don't feel like we're going to get a big improvement in putting. That's basically what I feel. So I would go Bubba, Louis, Scott, but I do think all 3 are pretty close. They're all actually playing pretty well too. So interesting 3 names there because they're people you could definitely pair with Tiger this week if you're going to go that route. Next one, Cam Smith versus Zach Johnson. We got these guys I think ranked like right beside each other in the survival guide. And it's kind of an interesting 1 versus 1 because they're kind of similar players too in a way.
Yeah. I don't love either of them this week.
Right.
The numbers look. It's funny because what I'm generally looking at, and then also like the high level view, they look a lot better in my eyes in the high level view. More like you're paying like high. You're buying a stock high is kind of how I'm looking at it.
Yeah.
We have them in the second class. I'm not scared of either of them. Neither of them look like it's a bad move, but they're not. They are like they're the same price. They're $100 off in DraftKings. They're $100 off in Fantasy Draft. They're actually way off in FanDuel.
Right.
Cam Smith is $900 less in FanDuel.
So maybe that's a good argument for Cam on FanDuel. Yeah.
That's the thing. I mean, but that being said, Zach Johnson, 13 of 14 cuts made here. I think.
Yeah.
I'm not expecting Zach Johnson to go out and win, but based on his history, based on the overall form, he's made all 6 cuts for all events that he's played in. He hasn't been putting as great as he normally does. Again, this is one of those courses where I think putters who can just get it online will do well. I think Zach Johnson's probably the better cash play, just the safer play in my mind.
I would probably agree. I like Cam. I liked him last week, but his ball striking didn't improve like I hoped it would. I think he actually got a little bit worse. So, but he saved himself with his short game and putter, which is nice. But that can go fast, especially at a course like Bay Hill. So I'd feel better about Zach Johnson this week too, especially if I was just making one lineup. I might bet Cam just at 71, just put a little bit of money on him or something. But just because I like him as a player, and I feel like once he gets the irons just settled a bit, he's gonna be good for a win. But yeah, I think I'd go Zach over. He's got a great record at Bay Hill. Missed one cut. He's got like a couple top fives, so it's close. But I think Zach Johnson's a little bit more steady right now. How about this? I'll just go off the script a bit here. Would you play Byung-Hun An over both of them this week?
Ooh.
I know he missed the cut last week, but man, like he's striking it pretty well before.
I'm a little annoyed about last week.
Yeah, I am too, because I had him in a couple lineups.
I took him in the only head-to-head we had against Woodland, and
right.
I didn't like many of the head-to-heads, but of the ones, it was kind of the ones I liked. So I was like, you know what? If there are guys that follow our site that like to bet and they only bet 1-to-1s or head-to-heads, I don't want to leave them out. So let me go get one. And I didn't love it, but listen, Woodland makes birdie on 18 to push. Like we would have had it actually. It sucked.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know what? The putting is still on the way up. He actually still putted very well last week overall for him. He's kind of average. I mean, I would agree. I think I would take him over either of those two, and especially this week in GPP. I still think Zach Johnson cash. I think, but in GPPs,
for sure. Yeah.
I think it's a great spot to take on because a lot of people were burned. A lot of people were heavy on him last week.
I like him this week. He's a good par 5 scorer too. I think the fact it's a par 72 it boosts him a little bit. I just think he was striking it well. He basically just had one bad round. He actually started the week well, made like one bogey in the snake pit or something, and then just like the next day was a disaster. So big deal, one bad round. Don't forget he T6 in Florida like 3 weeks ago. So similar greens and stuff. I like him this week at 77. I just wanted to throw that out there. But our next one was Grillo, guy who got us a big top 10. Played in India last week too. Actually was like lighting it up through the first 2 rounds, and then had just a disaster third round. I think he ended up still top 10. But so Grillo versus CH3, who made the cut for us last week, actually finished strong, but you say still putting problems.
Yeah, he finished under par for the week, which was decent given the fact that he was a nightmare. It's interesting. The chart that I'm looking at right now, I got on the screen. It's like it scares me because not only has the putting been decreasing, but he's gotten to a bottom level, and now it's plateauing. And when I see it like plateau a little bit, that means that like he's consistently there. It's not as volatile as what I'm normally looking at, where it's all right. Maybe it's going to go down. Maybe it's going to go up. Like I don't like seeing a flat line below a baseline because it means like they're setting a new baseline to an extent.
Right.
So he still struck it fairly well, not as well as he has been. I'm not as excited as I was last week. I thought I'd jump on him. I thought we'd get him for a good price. Listen, he didn't kill you if he had him in your lineup, so that was the best thing. But Grillo, love him. He's in our first class, 11th in form, 7th in history. He's 14th in trend, 13th in key stat. I think this is a great spot. He's been playing well. Like you said, we had him for the top 10. He played well last week. Both of his starts here, I got him average finished of 12. So
yeah, it was T7 last year.
Yeah.
He had a really weird tournament last year. He was kind of in it, and then he just had a blow up third round. That was we were like through the his club in the water. But then he shot like 64 on Sunday. Had the round of I think he shot 63 on Sunday or something. Had the round of the tournament, got himself back up to T7. So he's played well in Florida too. He played well at the Honda Classic. I can't put anyone off Grillo. I mean, like I mentioned off the top, he is coming back in from India, but I don't know, man. These guys all fly like first class, and they're all young. Like, who cares? I think it gets a little bit blown up, the jet lag thing. I mean, he's just coming into Florida.
I don't know that I agree there.
No? Okay. Yeah.
I do have. That does give me a little bit of pause, that travel, because that's not like an easy place to travel from.
It's around the world. I mean, he's coming from India. Like, it's the other side of the earth.
It's a very, very good point. I got to think about it a little more, because it's something. Because again, my argument, I think, to keep consistent is I like taking a week away from the higher end European guys that are making their first start on tour. But so it's kind of a little different, because Grillo has been here. He has been playing here. It's not like it's his first time on tour. He's been in this level of competition, so that's kind of the one difference I would say. So it's interesting to note that it's just something to think about.
Maybe just keep him to GPPs this week if you're really concerned about it. Like I said, I'm personally not that. I don't think it's that big a deal, but I definitely at least want people to know that that's the situation with him this week. So he's been playing well though. Like I said, he absolutely lit up that tough course in round 2. But yeah, he had a Grillo round in round 3. So last one for the week, Keegan Bradley, who's been playing well, versus Kevin Chappell.
This is a tough one. We had Keegan ranked pretty high last week. He faded, but he had a decent event overall.
Yeah, he didn't. I was making fun. I'm like, Keegan Shock Week, this is gonna go horrible. He actually played pretty well.
Yeah. Keegan, it's like it's again. I don't know if it's really a cash versus GPP play. It's more. I guess it kind of is. I think that Chappell, from what I'm seeing, is a bit more steady. But I think the upside from Keegan is there. I think I see some things where if he does put it all together, he's more likely to give you the higher finish.
Right.
I don't necessarily love either of them right now. I mean, Chappell's kind of like slowly been deteriorating from a really good spot. So he's not really in a bad spot. It's just, when guys go through these kind of ebbs and flows of their baseline that we always talk about, like if they're not trending towards it, it's rare that they kind of come back to it immediately, especially at this tier. So that's what I would say. I'd say Chappell seems to be more steady, but Keegan, I think, provides the better upside. Yeah,
Chappell was really like around the Pebble Beach and Career Builder. He was really striking it well. So I probably had last couple events not quite as good. Keegan's interesting. I mean, I don't like you said. I don't think either of these guys are horrible plays at all. I mean, they both seem to be steady. Both have some really good course history here too, by the way. Keegan, second and third. I know Chappell was second to your day one, so nothing to really put me off them. That's for sure at this price. I mean, I think they should both be on your list of guys to target. I'm just trying to look at this range if there's anyone else you could get on instead of them. I mean, obviously Sam Burns is there. So, I mean, we can talk about him next, actually, might as well, since we're on topic, and he was on our card last week. But this is a guy who's doing everything well right now. His Bermuda putting stats are ridiculous. It's a small sample, but they're ridiculous, and he's striking the ball well. So is there any reason not to just play him again?
At 72, I'm really surprised at the price. I'll be honest.
Yeah, I am too. I thought he'd get a big bump.
I'm super surprised. The FanDuel price makes a lot more sense to me at 9,000. Fantasy Draft has him at 13.2.
Yeah.
DraftKings has him at 7,200. I'm really surprised by it. I mean, the guy, he's what does he finish? He's finished. I guess it's tough because if you look at he finished 12th last week, right?
Yeah, T12, yeah, and T8 the week before.
I mean, he was in, and he was 8th the week before. So, I mean, what are we talking about here? You got a guy. I mean, I have 115th at Farmers, but that's so far long ago. I mean, you've seen these young guys make these runs. And I'm surprised. I feel like they're a little behind the curve on the pricing for a guy that goes 8, 12. He's a young up and comer. I think a lot of people are going to be hitting him again this week. Anyone that bet him top 20 last week. I mean, we didn't have him on the card for top 20, but I think a good amount of people did. They made out really well. So.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, he was a big price. So yeah, no. I mean, I don't think I'd be scared to get back on him. Like I said, I mean, the putter is working, and I mean, with these young guys, when that happens, they're generally good ball strikers already. I mean, half of them, that's how they got there. So I'm not really scared to get back on. I believe it's his first time seeing the course, but not that big a deal. Maybe not a cash game play, but if you're scared of that, but I actually wouldn't have a problem rostering him over Bradley or Chappell either. But there are a couple other names down there in this range too that just feel mispriced. Like Kyle Stanley played. He withdrew last week. I don't think it was an injury, but he started playing better in Mexico. He's only 7,200, and Kevin Na's down here too. Kevin Na did withdraw with a neck injury. I don't know how big a deal it was, but I mean, coming off a T2, his price looks a little ridiculous. So Kisner's down there too. He was obviously played really well this event last year. I don't really feel like he's striking the ball well enough to be considered. Streelman's down there at 7,100. I mean, of any of those four guys, is there one that you like more than the rest? I think I'd probably go Stanley personally.
Yeah, I don't really like any of them yet.
Yeah, I don't love any of them. I should say that. I just feel like Stanley's the guy I would probably take a shot at.
I need to see a little more from Stanley. Probably another event. I know we played well in WGC. I mean, especially like you said after the withdrawal. I don't think it's too big a deal, but I would say Hahn. I wrote down with a question.
Right.
We have Hahn way up there. I'm sure you saw. He's kind of he's been like pretty decent. I think it's one of those things where like overall, if you take all of his averages, he's slightly better than everyone else in terms of a lot of the numbers. So we have him in our second class, one of our top guys. I mean, the history here is not great. He's only made the cut once, but he's made all 6 cuts. His average finish over his last 6 events on tour is 22.3. He ranks 8th in average DFS points. So a couple really key things there to look at. And the trend is still good. We have him ranked 27th in trend. So it's a little above the price point. I guess that's probably should have been more for the conversation of like ZJ and Cam. I realized I thought he was low 7s, but I guess because I didn't mention him, I'd throw him in there.
No, but I mean, yeah, he ranks that highly for us, so it's good you brought him up. I mean, definitely, like again, and I probably getting like a broken record, but again, the winner of the $33 tournament on DraftKings last week had Casey Woods, and then basically just cherry picked from the 7K range. He's Reed. I think he had Zach Johnson on there, who I think was 7,700 again last week. But he just, again, and that's where you're probably going to see win again. There'll probably be Tiger, too. It'll probably be Tiger and, like, one other player, like Tiger and Fleetwood or something like that. But, again, this range, it's just chock full. Ben Ann, who I brought up. But, again, James Hahn ranks out really high for us, too. Zach Johnson, obviously, really consistent. But I just feel like you got to target a little bit lower ownership, guys who got good upside. That's kind of why I like Ann. And I think Hahn is definitely in the same situation. Just maybe not as consistent with the course history, but such good upside with the way they're playing. So I like both those guys for sure. My kid's screaming in the back. Can you hear that?
Love it. I heard something.
It's just my kid. Yeah. I'll just wait 1 second.
No, you're all good. Got to show him the ways. Got to show him how to pick some winners.
Yeah.
Let's see. I don't have anyone else way down there. I got one guy. I guess it's worth mentioning. Sung Kang.
Kang, yeah, I like Kang.
He's a guy that we liked him a good amount last year in a couple different spots. There's just a few things that I'm seeing there.
Yeah, I'm still pissed he didn't finish out at Congressional or whatever it was.
That's right. Yeah. It's kind of the same argument as some of the guys where like the ball striking's on the way up and the putting is kind of but he's not he's not a terrible putter overall. He's kind of middle of the road. So I want to give him a little more pass. Again, this week for some reason and I'm generally not this way. I'm just being a little more forgiving with the putter. And maybe I probably wouldn't have this bias had I not played a couple of times there, but I just remember the greens not being difficult. I mean, they were just, if you felt good and you knew the line, like they were perfect and they weren't, crazy undulating, anything like that. So the guys that are striking it well, where I know it does matter, I think that there's a good chance a guy that has not been putting well and maybe not even scoring well for that matter comes out and plays well this week, because you can I think if you just get them online, like you can make a lot of putts here.
And maybe that's a good argument for some of these other guys down here, like maybe the guy like Siwoo Kim. I mean, who can definitely get it going, and it might help him with the putter a little bit. I don't really have too many other plays from down here. I mean, like we talked about off the top. We didn't talk about on the pod yet, but there's some really like high end amateur players always get invites. Curtis Locke is back in the field. Who else were we talking about? Doc, what's his face?
The amateur, right?
Yeah, I can't even remember his last name.
Doc Redman?
Doc Redman, sorry. He's a U.S. amateur champ, so Sam Horsfield is a guy from England who actually played well a couple weeks ago. Yeah, it was a couple weeks ago in South Africa. Actually finished second there. But he's a pretty good player. I mean, he's got an invite here too. I believe he actually like trains in Florida too. I'm not sure if I'm correct on that, but I think he trains in the States. So kind of interesting. I'm not going to play any of these guys. I'm just kind of throwing their names out there though, just to give you an idea of the field because it's an invitational, 120-man field. I'll throw out one play actually at 7K. People are just gonna laugh because I always bring this guy. But Sean O'Hare, he was like fourth in strokes gained tee to green last week. So I mean, he's got a great course history at this event. Why not? I mean,
I wrote down O'Hare on the page.
Oh, he's creeping up the leaderboard for us. He's creeping up the survival guide.
I wrote him down. Another guy down there that you actually liked recently. I forget if it was. I think it was 2 weeks ago. Ben Martin.
Yes,
Ben
played pretty good on the weekend.
Yeah, those are two guys. Those are two guys that I wrote down that I know you like. That I'm ready to say, hey, let's maybe see something there.
No, and I mean they might be ready to pop for a decent week in DFS. I know. I mean, look, O'Hara's actually made me some good money. Like just because he always gets popped up to like 200 to 1, but he is always good for reading. You can always kind of see it. The ball striking comes, and he's got a fine game around the greens when he's on. And if that clicks, like he likes this course. So I definitely wouldn't put anyone off in this. He's 200 to 1 betting. I already got that bet in for top 5, mainly for top 5 purposes. But always pops with a couple top 5s. He had 6 top 10s on tour last year. So I like him as an upside play this week anyways. I wanted to throw that out there. Always seems to pop a few times a year. So let's kind of go back to the top, though, because this is definitely some players that I've talked about. Any interest in like Stenson, Matsuyama, getting back on Patrick Reed?
I got zero interest in Stenson this week. I think, and this unfortunately falls in the reins of that bias. Obviously, he didn't play well last week, and he burned us the year before when he didn't make the cut here. After before that he went 3rd, 2nd, 5th, 8th, 15th.
Yeah.
So obviously phenomenal course history here. But you know what? I'm not that interested. I mean, listen, I could see Bobby getting behind him because maybe a lot of people got burned, and they'll see that. But personally, there's just too many other guys that I can make a better case for. So
that's the issue.
Yeah. If you tell me you like Stenson, fine, but I'm just personally not there.
Yeah, it's a deep field, man. Like I just don't know if I feel the need to take that shot, to take that risk. Like I mean, Tyrell Hatton behind him is just playing so well. You go down to Adam Scott and get kind of a similar player for cheaper who is striking the ball well. And I mean, if you want a little bit more upside, maybe just take Bubba, who's cheaper too. So it's hard for me to make the argument for Stenson this week. I get it. Definitely from a GPP perspective, he's going to be like 4% owned. He's played well in Florida in the past, but I just don't feel the need this week. So I'm on board. I'm just going to go other places, I think. Matsuyama's interesting, but coming off the wrist injury, I just feel like you can usually just see the form coming with him, and I'm just going to wait. Reed's just too expensive for me. I don't know, man. Like 8,900 now just feels like too big a jump.
It's tough because I had Reed on the card I think 2 weeks ago or 2 or 3 weeks ago. I did like him. I generally root for Reed. I'm actually a Reed fan. I know there's I
like Reed too. I do like Reed. I shouldn't I hope people don't get the wrong impression. Like I was like anti-Reed because
I'm just saying
I like guys who are original and do their own thing.
Exactly.
That's Patrick Reed to a T, right? Like he just gets his brother to caddy for him, does whatever. He says what he's
polarizing because people don't like the cockiness, and I don't mind it because this game you have to be there, and if you're not willing to kind of put yourself out there and take that fall, then you can't really be as great as you want to be. Sure, maybe you shouldn't self-promote as much, but at the same time, I don't think he's been that way recently, and I think he's delivered. Obviously with the Ryder Cup, it's a huge spot for him. I always root for Patrick Reed. I kind of have a running joke, at least personally. I don't know if Jeff Feinberg knows, but I always tweet at him. It's a whole, if he's 35, 40 to 1 or more, you kind of expect Patrick Reed to get a win once every 40 events or so. So, that's kind of the right number to be at. I mean, and had you picked him last week, I think he was probably even a higher number because the results had been iffy. What was he, in the 50, 55 to 1?
I think he was 70 to 1 last week, man. Wow. He was a big number. That's why I said the people who bet Patrick Reed, kudos, because hopefully you bet him top 5 too. But it was a good bet.
So again, I don't even hate the price.
Yeah.
Just again, it's not. I would have liked to have had him last week, I guess.
He has been inconsistent this year. Like, I mean, obviously he popped last week, but we saw him pop at the PGA, and then he kind of like went away too. So we'll see what happens. If he goes off here again, I'll be all for it, but I'm probably not going to get on him. Yeah, I don't know. Anyone else that we haven't brought up? I mean, Brad Snedeker, I'm just gonna forget about 8,300.
There's nothing.
Scott Piercy's been hitting it really well. Another guy who can't putt, but his approaches are like off the chart.
Yeah, I mean, and he hasn't been putting well or poorly. He hasn't had any like spikes or anything like that. So you're right. He could be in line for that. I have him above his baseline for the secret stats. So that looks good. I mean, it's a slow trend up over the last 16 rounds or so. So that's pretty good. I don't hate that. And since the putter is not showing one way or the other, again, this could be the kind of place where you can run into something.
Yeah, for sure. Let's just. I mean, any other speculative guys that you want to talk about, or should we just move on?
Everyone that's on the piece of paper, I've mentioned. So.
All right, let's move on. Before we get to just kind of like our final predictions and who we throw out a few hot takes, let's just talk about Augusta. And if you were picking right now, like your winner for the Masters, who would it be?
So
obviously anyone, like not just the people in this field.
No, of course. So this is where I'm at, and this is going to be a similar conversation for the next question, but I really think Woods is going to have a chance. And I know that's like more of a fun kind of fairy tale conversation on Twitter and social media and stuff like that to say, well, he's coming up on Augusta. But you know what? Like, I think I'm just excited to say that. Whether or not I think he can win or not, the idea that I can actually say with confidence he has a chance compared to where we've been over the last couple of years talking about him, thinking about him, it's just I'm so excited for that, and I truly believe it. So there's that. I'm going to jump back to the pick I mentioned earlier that I think Fowler, if he does flash a better putter this week and get a little confidence, I definitely think he's a guy that it might be a little under the radar now for Augusta, but if he does play well this week, we'll probably jump back on it since he has the great success there and a couple really strong finishes. So I don't know if I'm ready to say who I think can win, but those are two guys that I'm very, very interested in. Obviously, everyone's interested in Tiger, but I like Fowler. I'm very interested to see, and I think it could be a good year for him considering he might be a little under the radar, whereas the last couple of years, the pressure's been there for him.
Yeah, that's an interesting take too, because you're right about the pressure. Like he's kind of been, one of the top 2 or 3 guys talked about the last couple of years, whereas this year he definitely won't be. Like he's not in form. Now if he wins this week, that might change, but obviously, with other guys playing well and Tiger coming back, he's kind of on the back burners. I'm gonna go a bit of a different direction. I'm gonna go with a guy who I really feel like people just kind of forgot about because he hasn't been playing that much. Is Jason Day.
Yep.
I got him at 20-1 on some books. He's finished second and first in 2 events this year. He's leading the field in putting again. And again, I've made this argument before. He's the best putter in the world, in my opinion, when he is on. And he looks healthy. He looks fine. I think that Tiger being back motivates him. I think it helps him too. He's another guy who's going to benefit from Tiger being back because let's say he does win again this week. It's still not going to be as much pressure with Dustin Johnson being the #1 player in the world and Tiger being in the Masters. Last time Jason Day was in such good form, he was the #1 player in the world, and it kind of got to him. He's not going to be as talked about this year, and he is playing really, really well. So I really like Jason Day for the Masters this year. I just feel like, and it comes back to this argument again, who is, when they're at their best, has the best top end, closest to peak Tiger? To me, it's Jason Day.
I would
and
agree.
I'll make that argument. I'll make that argument even against Dustin Johnson's best. I think his best is the absolute best. So I will take Jason Day right now. I think if you can get him like 18-1, that's a good bet in my opinion. So that's where I'm at right now. We'll see what happens the next couple of weeks.
I'm
still
checking
ways to
right
go.
Now. I'm interested to see what number I got offered just to see it. But,
I just feel like people forgot about him. I just feel like people kind of forgot about him because he hasn't been playing. But I still really like that play. I mean, he's he looks fine to me. So
he's down to 14. So, but I agree. I definitely agree. I like the pick. I can't love the number. If I saw him at 20-1 now, I would agree. I think that's a great price to have him at.
In my opinion, I think he's a better bet than Spieth if he's anything bigger than Spieth. That's just
I got Rose.
That's just my take.
I have Rose at 20-1. I don't feel great about it. So
yeah, I wouldn't feel bad about it either. Though. I mean, he looks kind of close. So he definitely looked close last week. It'd be interesting to see what he does. He's a little bit juiced up in price this week. So we'll have to see what Bobby says about ownership. But yeah. Let's get back to Arnold Palmer now, because that was a long conversation I thought we were going to have about it. But who's your pick for this week?
Let's see. I have this thought out. I'm actually, again, same conversation. I am 100% rooting for Tiger, and I do think that there's a good chance he wins this week. I don't think anyone can make a strong argument for why he doesn't. I mean, the one thing I would say is he's obviously getting it done in a slightly different way. So if he's different than the guy that won 8 times here, then maybe that formula for success isn't as likely to happen. But again, regardless of whether he has a history or not, I'd still say based on the form in the recent couple events that he's a guy that we should consider. So I'm rooting for him. That's where the heart is. But I like Fowler. I do like Fowler. I wanted to kind of fight, maybe say Bubba to go really off guard, but I think this is a good spot for Fowler. And then on the low end, like I said, I like Grillo a lot. I don't think that's a chance. I don't think he's going to win. But that's the only guy that I like that's more of a non-top name this week. So
right.
I got to stick with that.
Man, I really want to throw Louis out there and just test how big a heater it is now that we got the Casey win. I can maybe get Louis win now too. Screw it. I'll just pick Louis. I'll just say Louis is going to win. I don't feel like Tiger's going to win. I feel like he's still a little bit trouble with the driver. I feel like it might give him a little bit of trouble at this course. I might be completely way off in that take.
You think
I hope he plays well. I think he'll top 20 for sure, top 15. I think he'll flash at some point. I don't think he's gonna just not play well. I think he'll be close.
Yep.
But it won't worry me if he doesn't win here. Quite frankly, he's just he played well last week, big deal. But I don't think he's gonna win. So I'll just throw it. I do feel like it's gonna be someone like that. Maybe it's like Noren or Fleetwood. But I'll throw Louis. He's been driving it well. Irons really came through last week. That's what I was worried about in Mexico, and those came through last week. So it's a guy I know can putt a little bit better than did. I'll throw him out there. He's got a decent course history too. So Louis is my pick.
Love it.
All right. That does it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Obviously check out the site, guys. I mean, we're still in the run up to the Masters here. We're going to be throwing out some Masters content soon. But like I mentioned, building a great community, weekly, monthly, yearly options available. Got the lineup builder out. Got the chat option on site coming out very soon. Bunch of great tools. FantasyGolfMetrics.com. I am Jeff Ulrich at The Fantasy Grind on Twitter. He's Steven Richter at FG Metrics on Twitter. Thanks a lot for tuning in, guys. We'll talk to you again next week.
Take it easy.
Find me at J Marta Magic Mall. Around the corner with taste. What you got, man? I got 'em all. What you know about the Old Town Hustle? 5-4, it's one a deal. Or if the brown looking good. Half 5, that's real. We all some hustlers on a chase to get that paper.